It's time I do some much needed repairs to my daily driver and keep BlackBerry's last ever phone alive. My phone has become a bit of a relic of time gone by in the smartphone world, a phone with a physical keyboard. This BlackBerry was released in 2018 and never received a single Android OS upgrade like previous models had. Support for this phone from BlackBerry is long gone, not that it had very much to begin with, unofficially making the LE in Key to LE stand for Last Edition. I repaired this particular phone once before when I purchased it cheaply from the US. I ordered the replacement screen attached with a new frame as I thought the old one was in bad condition. While the new frame has gotten its own fair share of marks over the years, the majority of these marks being purely wear and tear from being in my pocket. After all, this is just a painted plastic frame and not anodized aluminium like the main Key 2 model. But after 6 years, the battery is failing to a point that under 15 to 20%, it falls at about 1% per minute. And the phone will send a notification every time it drops a percentage below 15%. Looking at the battery usage graph, you can visually see this rapid drop. With BlackBerry's phone division now long gone, we have no option but third party. I didn't want to order a battery that claimed to be an original, so I purchased this unassuming battery with no branding. When it arrived, it was branded Alcatel, which is another brand connected with TCL, who actually manufactured the Key 2 LE. So this battery was used in other devices. But even trying to buy a generic battery, I still ended up with a counterfeit that was mass-manufactured in 2022. Let's hope it's reliable. But the battery isn't the only fault. The charge port is also worn out, requiring the cable to be wiggled sometimes to work. It also tends to unplug way too easily. So I'll be installing a new one of those. It's over to the heat plate for this fruit phone for a few minutes to soften the adhesive holding the back panel on. Because of the unique textured back, a suction cup is no use. Instead, I'll have to pry from the edge using a plastic pick. Once I have an opening, I can slide the pick around the perimeter to separate the adhesive and small clips at the top and bottom of this cover. The previous model, the Key 1, had its back held on with only clips, which tended to break, which would cause the back cover to fall off. Once open, I'll begin cleaning off the old adhesive I applied last time I repaired this phone. It's done a good job at keeping out all that dust. I'll proceed in removing the upper antennas and NFC coil. This will provide access to the battery connector, which we'll need to unplug. It's also a good time to check if the new battery has the same connector, which it does. The headphone jack doesn't seal to the frame like most phones, instead it's partially open, which has allowed for some dust to enter, but nothing a brush and some air can't fix. One neat thing about repairing this phone is you don't have to worry about getting the cameras dusty or accidentally leaving your fingerprint on it, as the outer lens is attached to the cameras and not to the back panel. To gain access to the battery, we first need to move the button flex cable out of the way before removing the metal shield covering it. For some reason, the battery isn't glued to this shield, but to the frame. A missed opportunity to make this battery removable by only screws. However, underneath this shield is the familiar adhesive used in many Chinese branded phones. Even though I reused this adhesive, it's still quite strong the second time round, so you can bet I'll be using it again. With the old battery removed, we can get the replacement installed. We'll also need to fold the cable to the right length so that it attaches properly to the motherboard. Sometimes what feels like a bad charge port is actually just one filled with dirt. So before I opened the phone, I initially used a SIM eject tool to carefully prod the inside of the port to see if there was any dirt, preventing the cable from fitting correctly. Even using a brush and air, nothing appeared to be lodged in there. Regardless, I can proceed in cleaning the speaker and microphone mesh which will help improve sound quality. To access the charge port, there is 4 more screws that need to be removed before the speaker can be pried out, revealing the charging port beneath. I'll get the 2 antenna cables attaching to it unplugged, or at least one of them, while the other one just broke off. I hate these connectors, but with that being said, I think this is the first one I've had snap off on me. Thankfully, it was only on the old charge port, which we're replacing anyway. To be able to reuse the cable though, we'll need to remove the rest of the connector which is broken off while still being attached to that cable. I used some tweezers to bend the broken piece out of shape, allowing me to grab it and remove it. With all the cables detached, now comes the daunting part. Well, at least it would be if we had to reuse this part. It's glued down with absolutely no screws, something I haven't heard of any other phone doing, but at least it's not soldered to the motherboard. The PCB is surprisingly flexible. I might as well clean the port from this side too while the phone is disassembled. Even though I had attempted to clean the charge port, it turns out it was clogged with lint. The SIM eject tool must have been thicker than the usual one, as it failed to reach the bottom of the connector. Using some tweezers, we can see just how much was in there. The cable fits better now, but it's still not perfect. But if I was having connectivity issues, there could be other problems with this charging port. Plus, I already have a replacement and removed the old one, so it's time we fit the new one. The adhesive used was not only strong, but conductive, forming a ground connection to the frame. As such, I'll keep some of this old adhesive exposed so that it can connect to the board while using liquid adhesive to actually hold the connector in place. But with our new parts installed, now it's just a matter of getting the phone back together. You might be wondering at this point, why would I be using a 6-year-old BlackBerry instead of one of the new phones I've purchased over the last few years for teardown videos, or even one of my much newer phones that I've repaired? The answer is quite simple. I wanted a basic phone that wouldn't draw me in or keep me glued to the screen. So many people are disconnected from the world around them by their mobile phones. This phone is only used for calls, SMS, email, basic note-taking, and eBay. But I needed a phone that also accepted 2 physical SIM cards, something almost all new phones don't support. The only dual SIM phones I currently have are a Sony Xperia 10 Mark III, Galaxy S10 Plus, and Note Fan Edition. I admit it would be nice to have a phone that took decent photos, but as long as I remember to take my camera with me when I think I'm going to need it, I can get by. Let's now get the new adhesive installed for the back panel after first removing any of the old stuff. I'll be using the exact same method and placement as I had done previously, as it was sufficient in holding the back panel in place. As this phone has no IP rating, there isn't any need to worry about ensuring a watertight seal. Now it's just the case of removing all the plastic protective film before attaching the back panel. And we're done. So this is it. We've kept BlackBerry's very last smartphone going with the aid of a new battery and charge port. So far everything is working well with the new battery. And comparing the usage graph, you can see the new battery declines much more smoothly, rather than the original battery which dropped off rapidly as percentage decreased. This was an indication of a worn out battery. But no repair is complete without a proper test with my application iTest, which allows me to test many of my phone's hardware functions to ensure my phone is working correctly after the repair. With this Fruit phone successfully refurbished, it can now live on. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffreys video. If you like what you saw, consider subscribing and check out the phone restoration playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you're looking for any used devices, be sure to check out my online store, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.